presenting in Tatwaprakashini, and that too without Sri Krishna Kumarji is I think we cannot explain by words what he was to this whole function. He stood like an edifice behind it, and he we were called to guide the students, but in fact, he used to guide us as well as the students in a very unique way. So I'd like to begin with the blessings of Sri Krishna Kumarji. The book, The Life Divine, that he gave me, and I couldn't find time initially to read the book. And when I opened the first page and I saw what was his feeling and what he intended to uh, make me read this principles of Sri Aurobindo. So this was the first time I was exposed to, since I had been to Pondicherry once, but this was the first time I exposed to the text part, the theoretical part, the principles of Sri Aurobindo. So when I last year, when that was the last meeting I had with Sri Kumarji, he asked me whether you read this Life Divine. So I told, sir, I read only a part of it, and I also started reading some part of Savitri also, which was also written by Sri Aurobindo. So Sri Krishna Kumarji told me, "Have you? Can you quote me from Savitri, which you found to be very useful, or which is an important quote of Savitri?" So I could tell some of the few lines in the initial part. So then he told me, all can be done if the God touch is there. This is what he told me. Then he told, Doctor, you go and read that book. That God touch is there now. God touch, that is required everywhere. But Sri Aurobindo has written it in a unique way. That God touch is, the term is hyphenated, he said. So when I saw it in the Savitri Aurobindo, so all can be done if the God touch is there. This God touch, it's a hyphenated term. So as long as the God touch is with us, we are capable of doing our things. So we can present, we can do a lot of things only when this is there. God touch is there. If that is lost, if there is no God touch, then things go in a not in a way as we think. So the meaning is what Krishna Kumarji intended to tell me is it's not just the individual, that I is not important. The he, the soul, the great, the Paramatman, the God who is above us, watching us, and his touch is, when that touch is there, that sparsha is there, then definitely things roll in the way we desire. So with this, I want to begin the today's presentation, and this touched me a lot, that all can be done if the God touch is there. So it's like a sadvritta, like the principle of a sadvritta, which is most essential to maintain a normal health. So, friends, as you know, excellence is a journey and discipline is the vehicle. So, everybody strives for excellence, and the basic necessity is the discipline. Now, what is this discipline? See, the discipline we need to understand from all the Vaidyas who have studied Ayurveda, who wrote the Samhitas of Ayurveda, who practiced Ayurveda. So, what the discipline they have taught us? They have taught the discipline which they practiced. What was the discipline they practiced? So, it is said, it is explained by a great Vaidya, Ayuhu Vedayati Jnapayati Prakriti Jnana Rasayana Duta Arishta Dyupadeshaditya Ayurveda. He says, what is Ayurveda? That which gives the knowledge of the Prakriti is Ayurveda. That which gives the knowledge of Rasayana, that which gives the knowledge of the Duta, the Arishta. The Upadesh of all these is Ayurveda. We say Ayurveda is life science. We say Ayurveda, Ayu is Sharir Indriya Sattvatma Sanyoga. But what we are taught here, what we are taught by our ancient Vaidyas, the commentators, the practitioners, they told you should have the knowledge of the Prakriti. You should have the knowledge of Rasayana, Duta, Arishta, and these have their own significance. They didn't tell like Kayajagitsa or Shalyatantra. Yes, they are included. But the most important part, which we generally miss, is the Prakriti Jnana, the Rasayana, the Duta Jnana, which has almost become a rare commodity in the study of Ayurveda. The Arishta Jnana, the Indriya Sthana, that is also rarely read. So he says this is Ayurveda. Where? In the first chapter of Ashtanga Hridaya. This is told in the first chapter of Ashtanga Hridaya by the commentator. So, friends, these are what the discipline means. The discipline regarding the knowledge of Ayurveda, how we should get and what we should read is explained in these lines. So, what is then Upadesha? These are Ayurveda Upadesha. What is Ayurveda Upadesha? Ayurveda Upadesha is one which is explained by Upapatti. And how Ayurveda Upadesha should be followed by Patha, that is the study, Avabodha, that is making others know Ayurveda, and Anusthana, that is the practical implementation of Ayurveda. Then he says, Bahushu Ayurveda Tantreshu Yatnaha Karyaha. You should read many Samhitas. That is, you should read the other Samhitas also. Other texts of Ayurveda related, maybe related to Rasa Shastra or related to Chikitsa like Vangasena or Yogaratnakara or Sharangadhara, and even the other Samhitas also. So by reading the various Samhitas, Aneka Ayurveda Avalokanathi Chikitsayam Vaidyasya na managapi sandeho jayate. If you do like this, then you will be free from all your doubts. So this discipline, or what I told as the discipline required to reach the excellence, is told by Arunadatta, the commentator of Ashtanga Hridaya, who wrote Sarvanga Sundara commentary. The gist of what he has told is the knowledge of Ayurveda is in the form of Upadesha. The Upadesha of the Prakriti, Rasayana, Dutarishta. Then what is Upadesha? What we should call as Upadesha? The teaching in the form of cause and effect relation, Karya Karana Vada. That which is in the form of Karya Karana Vada is Upadesha. Then he tells to follow us the three-pronged strategy, that is earn, explain, and evaluate. I use the term earn. Why? Because it's like not that somebody will teach you is totally wrong. Somebody will guide you, and you have to earn the Upadeshas. That is, you have to get those Upadeshas. That's what the disciples of Ayurveda did. Brahma smrutva ayusho vedam prajapati majigrahat. That is, Brahma taught Prajapati Ayurveda. Maybe first level translation may be right, but it's not that he taught Ayurveda. He never taught him Ayurveda. He made him to know Ayurveda. He stimulated him in such a way that he should understand the principles of Ayurveda. Then, in the same way, it was transferred to Ashwini, then later to Indra. So, the principle is earn, then explain it to others. What you have learned, you explain it to your patients, you explain it to the people. Then you evaluate. That is, you practice it. So, earn, explain, and evaluate is the three method that was adopted by most of the commentators. So he says, read various Samhitas. They contain the Upadeshas of Ayurveda. Clear your doubts. And finally, if you do so, then you can practice Ayurveda without any fear. So if you want to practice without any fear, then this is the method that you need to follow. So to follow this, what we need to do, what is the gist of what is told by Arunadatta? It is Nitya Adhyayana. So we should do a daily and a continuous study of Ayurveda. And that is what I am going to discuss today. The importance of Nitya Adhyayana in our life and in our clinical practice. So without Adhyayana, Kshanadurdhvam Atarkikaha, it is said. In absence of a study for even one Kshana, then you are atarkika. That is, you do not have any tarka. So to begin with, how this adhyayana helps in the study. So the if you take the for example, yes, any question? So to begin with, see a case of jwara, kasa came to OPD, and the most important what we need to do first is to take the history. So when I took the history of the patient, so who had jwara and kasa, I came to know that this patient had developed jwara from the morning, and he gave a history that he had taken some food, some heavy food of like roti with paneer, and that too was consumed the previous day night at around 11:30 p.m. So when I asked him why you ate late, so he told that his father was suffering from fever since last 2 to 3 days, and he gradually developed difficulty in breathing. And by the time he came from his office in the evening, his mother and his family members were waiting. His father had developed a lot of breathlessness, and he was to be taken to a nearest hospital there. Then he was admitted there, and then the his son, the patient who has come to our OPD, he told after that he went to a nearby hotel and all the hotels were closed, so he has to go to a dhaba outside. He took the food, paneer and all, and came back. By that morning, he had developed fever and cough. Now, he see this happened 1 month before, and he had the fear like everybody is having now. Whenever somebody develops jwara, kasa, then it is whether it is problematic or we have to get the mandatory tests that are prescribed now to do those or not. So that was the doubt he was having. So he was not even ready to come inside. He told, sir, I am having this problem. Should I get any tests done? Because my father is suffering from so and so symptoms. So he has been admitted in the hospital. So I told, see, what is the problem he is having? He is having jwara. He is having kasa. The fear that he may develop shvasa, that is a different thing, right? We are not concerned about in the initial stage. The most important aspect in the treatment is the nidana, to understand what is the causative factor, what led to the jwara, right? So as I discussed earlier, ayurveda is sopapattika. It is based on karya karana vada. Without karya karana vada, there is no ayurveda. So here jwara is a vyadhi, and in this disease, in this condition, in this patient, we observed that he had taken some heavy food, guru ahara. So now what will be the treatment? The treatment should be based on nidana as well as the vyadhi also. Now, when somebody has taken some food and it has not been digested, it leads to ama and causes various diseases, and jwara is one among them. Now, what's the treatment for jwara? Jware langhanam evadau upadishtam. Jware langhanam adau upadishtam. Rute jwarat. There are some exceptions, but this is not an exception. He has taken food, that too heavy food, that too when? Late night. What is that time? That is akala. That is not the kala, ahara kala, right? So, but that was compulsory for him. There was no option for him. So he ate late, he ate guru ahara, and he developed for these symptoms. Of course, he might be having some sanchaya before also. That is different. But the sannikrishta karana is this guru ahara and akadina ahara. Now, the first line of treatment should be what? It is Langhana. What is Langhana? Is it Vamana and all? Says Chakrapani, Langhanam Matra Upavasaha. What is Langhana? The form of Langhana is Upavasa. You should do Upavasa. So he was suggested to do Upavasa. He was given Ushnajala. He was given allowed asked to continue this Ushnajala till he develops sweating, till he passes motion and urine. So first he developed thirst. He took the Ushnodaka. You should remember that this Ushnodaka should be given only when he develops the Trishna. Then after 5 to 6 hours, he gradually started sweating. He passed urine some 2 to 3 times, and by evening he could even pass his motion. By the time he passed motion, he had profuse sweating, and his jwara gradually started decreasing. By the night also, he couldn't get any appetite. So there was no need to take food. It was not essential to have food, because we give food when a patient or a condition in which he develops kshuda. Trishna is indication for to give paniya or jala, and kshuda is the indication to give food. Now, when he has not developed kshuda, how can we give food to him? Now, we had to wait for 24 hours. In the morning, again he passed motion. See, he has not taken any food. By evening, he passed motion. Again in the morning, there was malapravritti. So what is this? This is jirnahara. The ahara has become jirna. If it had become jirna in 12 hours, then he would not have developed the jwara. So this ama, the dosha, and the ahara, when they become underwent paka, and the pakwa material, that is the material, the products of the paka, and they were excreted out of the body, then that led to gradual opening of the Svedavasrutas, resulting in Sveda, resulting to Amapachana, and finally Jvara Mukti. He had again Malapravritti, that at the end it was even Drava, indicating that the main cause, that is the Ahara became Pakva, it went away. There was Malapravritti, and at the end the Drava like substance went away. Why? What is the cause for Jvara? It's the Sannikrishta Karana, what we told is the Ati Guru Ahara Sevana and Akalina Ahara Sevana. Now it should aggravate a dosha, right? And what is the basic dosha in Jvara? It is Pitta dosha. And hence, Pitta is, how is Pitta? Pittam Sasneha Tikshnoshnam Laghu Visram Saramdravam. So it's Drava. Generally, we find that in Jvara cases, when we treat as per Ayurveda with the Langhana method, we find that the patient passes Drava Mala, right? So he passed Drava Mala, and by 24 hours he was okay. He was not having any weakness, right? And his temperature had become normal. Now he was given advice not to take bath in the morning. Why? Because the Jalasnana will lead to increase in Jvara or Punaravartana of Jvara, and that's why Snanam Chankramanasana Jvara Mukto na Sevet Yavanna Balavan Bhavet. So, till Balaprapti, the Jvara Mukta person should avoid the Snana. So, he was asked to avoid Snana. He remembered that, but by the time he could come to OPD, he had another problem. His mother, his son, and his wife, they had no Jvara. Along with that, they had also Kasa. There was irritation in the throat. So these were the same symptoms that developed in his father. Now they developed in him, then in his family members also. They had also a little bit of fever. So he immediately came with those members to OPD, and when inquired, we came to know that they had taken masha, idli, along with other food the previous day. So it was again the Guru Ahara. It occurred at the same time, that's okay. But the fact is that there is a nidana for that. And they were having Agni Mandya also. That is, they didn't have any desire to eat food at that time. Now we advise again, what? We advise them not to take food. That is Upvasa. So you should also advise the patients not to like attend mobile or talk to others also. It's no, Upvasa is what? Is it just fasting? Then continue all your activities? No. It is upavasa means what? Upavrittasya pavebhyaha sahavaso gunehi saha. Upavasa has two terms. One is upa and another is vasa. Upa is to come into close contact. Vasa means to stay. So to stay with what? To stay with the good food, to stay with the Ushna Jala, that is Saha Vasa, then Upasamipe, and moving away from all sorts of apatya. Even we ask them not to take food. Anahara. So Langanamatra Upavasa. So Upavasa means not taking any food and taking only the the Ushna Jala, and along with that the patient should avoid the mobile, talking to others, watching television or studies or anything else. So everything should be avoided. Even this Vajra is mrudu, then also the total rest is what is required. And he should not use the fan. So some people have a tendency that since I am having Jwara, why should not I use the fan? So that depends on the different types of Jwara, but you cannot directly sleep below the fan because that becomes a Puro Vata Sevana. That aggravates the Jwara. So with this base, the treatment should be implemented. Now, in all the three cases, that is his son, wife, and mother, so we asked the same to do Langana. And since they had taken the home food, they have not taken from hotel or outside food, and I think their Agni was very so right. By afternoon and by evening, one by one, they became all right. And they even had the food in the night. So, what is the food that needs to be administered? So, the Jwara, and especially in the Kantaroga, that is the when a person develops Jwara with Kasa, or there is irritation in the throat, or there is a Kandu in the Kanta Kandu, then that is the best time to choose a proper Yusha, and the best Yusha is Mudga Yusha. You know the green gram, the Mudga. So how it is prepared? Karshardam Vakana Shuntya Kalkadravyasya Vapalam Viniya Pachayed Yuktya Variprasthena Chaparan Shadanga Paribhashaiva Prayapeyadi Samhita. So the Kana and Shunti, or Musta and Shunti, or Musta or Parpata. These are the various dravyas that are recommended by which the Paniya is to be prepared by Shadanga Paribhasha. That is 1:64 reduced to half. That's the general method that is recommended. We adopt different methods depending on the Agni and how much amount of drug is required. See, you should remember that Kashaya is not indicated. Yakashaya Kashaya Syat Savarjas Tarune Jware. But when the Kashaya is contraindicated, then why this Kana Shunti and all? See, only we are administering here not Kashaya. It is similar to Kashaya, but it is not Kashaya. It is called as what? Paniya. It is called as Paniya. So the Paniya that is prepared, that is generally administered in Jwara, either we give Ushna Jala or we give this Shadanga Paniya Vidhanokta, the Paniyas, and the most common Paniya we prefer is Musta Nagara Paniya. So the Musta Nagara Paniya, in the same Paniya, you can prepare the Mudga Yusha, to which Mudga is added, boiled, and the upper portion that we get, when the Mudga gets boiled, so the Manda that we get is known as Yusha. The difference between Mandadi and Yusha is Manda is prepared from Shali and Yusha is prepared from the Shimbi Dhanyas, the green gram, and other Yushas like Kulatta Yusha, Mudga Yusha we call. So Mudga Yusha is most recommended in Jwara and Kasa. And we should observe further during Jwara, when you administer Mudga Yusha or you administer the Pani or you administer the Ushna Jala, you should observe for Samyak Langita Lakshanas, Vatamutra Purishanam, Visarge Gatra Laghave, Hridayodgara Kantase Shuddhau Tandra Klame Gate, Svede Jate Ruchaucha Pikshut Pipasa Sahodaya. So here you should observe for the Utpatti of Kshut Pipasa, that is Pipasa and Kshut. See here, I told you earlier that there is a Trishna Utpatti in which you should administer the Paniya or the Ushna Jala, and there is Kshud Utpatti, you should give the food. That is the Mudga Yusha. So here what he is telling is Kshut Pipasa Sahodayaha is a very unique finding or Lakshana that is to be observed by we Vaidyas in all the Langana, especially in Jwara. He says Sahodaya. How come it can become Sahodaya? Yes, it depends on the concentration of the doshas. First they develop Trishna, Then they develop kshuda. When the kshuda develops, if it is with the pipasa or the trishna, saha udayaha means along with, that is kshuda and trishna, thirst with hunger. If both the utpatti of both is the proper lakshana of jirnahara lakshana also. Now the ahara, the ama, the dosha have become pakwa. There are other lakshanas also, like vatamutra purishanam and all. But kshutpipasa sahoda is a very critical part. The sahotpatti is followed by intense desire to take food, and when person and a patient takes food like the mudgayusha, they develop profuse sweating. You cannot observe such a type of sweating in other administration of even other drugs or other therapies also. So much of sweating we have observed, especially when there is Kshutpipasa Sahodaya and we give the Mudgayusha. So these are the Langhana Lakshanas that we need to observe. So what I want to tell is the case in which we treated and the similar cases which we observed in the last 2-3 months, people are becoming panic when they develop Jwara and Kasa. See, the connection is connection cannot deny the damage it may cause. See, we say Jwaro Rogapati. So it is Rograt. Why? Because it has a capacity to cause many other diseases. See, what is the Upadrava of Jwara? Jwara Santapad Raktapittam. And what's the Upadrava of Raktapitta? It is Kasa. So, what are Upadravas? Upasamipe Dravati. They are always revolving around the main Roga, that is the Jwara. So, Jwara causes Kasa. Kasa causes Shvasa. Kasat Shvasa, says Vagbata in Nidana. Then, Pratishaya is there, or if there is Kasa, Shvasa, if they further proceed, they lead to what? Vardhamanam Kshayapradam, they lead to Kshaya. So it's a continuation of Nidanartha Karatva, and that is based on the Nidana itself. That is based on the basic Nidana he has consumed. So some may argue whether it is Agantu or Nija, but we should observe the Lakshanas. That is very important here, that whether the Agni Mandya is there or not. And along with these Lakshanas, having Agni Mandya, you start with Ushna Jalapana, then you get the desired results very easily and in a very short period. You should make the patient avoid everything. See, patient have a tendency to take biscuits and tea. They drink tea and biscuits. It's highly contraindicated. Why? Tea is of kashaya rasa. Ya kashaya kashayasya savarjas tarune jwari. How can you advise tea and coffee when he's suffering from fever? Patients, people notion that take tea and coffee, they will be relieved of the cough, they will be relieved of the fever. No, especially in fever, this is not indicated. When there is ama, this is not indicated. It will, on the contrary, aggravate the disease. So you should be cautious around with these aspects also. But if you avoid and you take, there is 100% guarantee that there will be no problem in Jvara, Kasa and Shvasa. Because the Samprapti Vigatanameva Chikitsa, keeping ama inside, whatever therapy you give, if the person takes, say, once he is relieved, he thinks he is relieved of the fever. Is he relieved of the Samprapti process inside? We don't know. He doesn't know. He will start taking fruits. He will start taking bread. He will start taking some bakery items and all. So we are not against fruits, or we are not against any bakery items. But what is important is whether what is this condition? What is the condition of the Agni? Whether there is ama there or not? Whether the Mala Pravrti has taken place or not? That is a very critical part to be observed. Once that is cleared, if he does some a bit of apathy also, then nothing happens. Why? Because it is Agni Chikitsa. Similarly, Grahanim Ashritam Dosham Ajirnavadupacharet, Atisarokta Vidina Tasyamam Cha Vipachayet. So, in the case of Grahani, we observed that we administer several drugs like Musta, Nagara, Sariva, Dhanyaka, Patha, Methika. The only difference is the ama occurs in the upper part in Jwara, and if it occurs in the Grahani, then it causes Grahani dosha. The same ama that is below the in the Adho Amashaya. So we adopted the method of administering a unique yoga called as Methi Modaka. It is in Grani Roga Chikitsa from Vaishajya Ratnavali. So this Methi Modaka, Yavantyetani Churnani, you can note in the 173rd shloka, Yavantyetani Churnani, Tavadevatu Metika, Sanchurde Modaka Karya Puratana Gudenacha. So what is administered here? Here Methika is administered, along with Kuda. Such persons in Grahani, having a tendency to pass motion again and again, they develop a lot of Daurbalya also. घृतेन मधुना किञ्चित् खादेद् अग्निबलं प्रति अग्निं च कुरुते दीप्तं सामे मेदे महौषधं बलबलकर्णो हेषः संग्रह ग्रहणीहरः. So it is Grahanihara. And in my clinical practice, I found this Methi Modaka to be extraordinary, having extraordinary effect in Grahani. We administer Methi, but whatever Acharyas have suggested is to administer it along with Guda. That is the basic principle in Methi Modaka. I'm not discussing like a yoga here. What is the principle of this? What is the principle of yoga? We administer Swarna Parpati, we administer Abraka Parpati, lot of drugs we use. But this unique yoga, see, it contains many of the drugs that we use in spice, the trikatu, musta, jiraka, dhanyaka. Along with that, the basic ingredient of our seasoning or our food, that is the methika, methi. So that is an important ingredient of this methi modaka. And I was introduced to this when I was studying in Jaipur regarding this yoga and from in the National Institute of Ayurveda. So when I started practicing, when I used this methi modaka, I found it to be very effective. So what is the principle of administration of these Aushadhi Dravyas? That we should know. See, Aharam Muktva Tat Samskara Upyogitvan Mithyaharodbhava Roga Sadhanopayogitvat cha Prayopayoginam Dravyanam Swarupa Parijnanartham Uchyate Tadartham Adhyayaramba. This is from Ashtanga Sangraha. He says, why to use a Dravya? What is its place? Where we have to use the Dravya? So he says, Ahara Muktva. I explained you about Ahara. Then I'm going to explain you that Tat Samskar Upayogitvat. So that means, what is a drug or a Dravya? It is used in the Samskar of Ahara Dravyas. It is used in the Samskar of Ahara Dravyas. As I explained earlier, the Mudgayusha is prepared in Paniya. Of what? Mustanagara. Paniya is prepared, it is used to drink, as well as the same Paniya can be used to add water to prepare the Manda, to prepare the Yusha. You can use the same as a remedy for diseases due to Mithya Yoga of Ahara. That is, to treat the Mithya Yoga of Ahara, the Aushadas we require. But how the Aushada is to be used? It is to be used along with Ahara. And Methi Modaka is the best example of using Methika with Guda along with other Aushada Dravyas. That is very typical in the Grahani Chikitsa. So this Dravya, whether it is Swarna, we give it Kritamadu, Haritaki, Trikatu, Trifala, we all administer this with what? With specific Ahar Dravyas. So coming to this I have discussed in many of my presentations, and it is, it is called as Mandaka. It is called as Mandige in Karnataka. So what is this Mandaka or Mandige? This is how it is prepared. This is prepared in the form of a Rumali roti that is used in North India, right? So what is Mandaka? So Varina Komalam Kritva Samitam Sadhu Mardayet Hastachalanaya Tasya Loptrim Samyak Prasarayet Adhomukha Ghatasyaitad Vistrutam Prakshipet Bahihi. So it is put on the Adhomukha Vistruta Ghata. Like you can see here, Adhomukha Vistruta Ghata. On that Rumali roti like structure is put over. And then Mruduna Vanena Sadhya Siddho Mandaka Uchyate Dugdena Sajjagandena Mandakam Bhakshayen Naraha. So this has been, there are the different methods. So in Karnataka it is taken as Mandige and that is administered. It's a Brahmana, it's a Vajikarana, it is a Rasayana, this Ahara Dravya. Now this is a Bhaksha. Tam Ghanibhutamativa Dugdham Guruni Mamsani Samandakani Mashanna Pishtani Bhavanti Pathyan. So what is Pathya with Makaradhvaja? It is Shrutam Ghanibhutam. Atra Ghritam Ghani Ativa Ghanibhutam. That is Ghanibhuta is known as Ghrita. Then Ativa Shrutam Dugdham. So the milk which is boiled again and again. So it's converted into a thick form. That is Ativa Shrutam Dugdham and Ghani Bhuta Ghrita. Samandakani. What is Mandaka? It is Goduma Bhaksha that I discussed earlier. So Mashanna Pishtan. Even we can take Masha, Mashanna also. Or Masha preparations. So this Mandaka is the bhaksha with which the Makaradhwaja is to be taken. So is Makaradhwaja important or Mandaka important? Right? So you can think over this. Like in Jwara, you have a lot of food, but you cannot take those. Upvasa is the treatment. So every Aushadha Dravya. So you may say the Makaradhwaja is the best Rasayana. It leads to Saptadhatu Vriddhi. It normalizes the Saptadhatus. How? When administered with proper Anupana. If there is no Anupana, then there is no use. Similar is the preparation that is mentioned, and we commonly use in our clinical practice is Vedamika. It is prepared from Godhuma and Masha. The Masha and is soaked in water. The next day it's put in a mixie, converted into a paste, and that is mixed with the Godhuma. And parotas or chapati like preparation is prepared, and that is to be taken. So what is its use? Ushna Santarpani Gurvi Brahmani Shukrala Param Bhinnamutramala Stanya Meda Pittaka Faprada Gudakil Ardita Shwasa. It is indicated in Ardita. We administer in Ardita also. Pakti Shulani Nashayet. So this is known as Vedamika. So these are the base drugs on which the Rasayana concept of Rasayana Vajikarna is based. Right? So this is about the some of the examples of Ahara Dravyas which are very critical in the administration of the Aushadhi Dravyas. Administering only Aushadhi is not generally indicated. As I explained earlier, the principles as explained in Ashtanga Sangraha, he says, what is Aushadhi? That which is to be administered with the Ahara Dravya is Aushadhi, and which corrects the Mithya or the wrong effects of taking a food. When there is Ahara Mithya Yoga or Ati Yoga or Ayoga, you need a Aushadha to correct it, or it can be corrected just by Ahara. When you want to administer Aushadha, you should administer it with Ahara, and these are some of the important rogas and the examples we take. So in this case, you can note that the person was developing the that is developed on his finger. It used to open and it used to bleed also. Now, this problem he was having only on few fingers of both the hands, but he used to but the problem was he had this problem repeatedly. So every month he used to have this, then he used to take some antibiotic and he used to get rid of that. Now, when we took the history, we came to know that he was having a history of taking Kusumba Taila, safflower oil. So what is told regarding this in our Samhita? What the Upadesha tells? Ayurveda Upadesheshu Videya Paramadaraha. Uma Kusumbhajam Choshnam Tvagdosha Kapha Pitta Krit. What it causes? It increases the Pitta. That's why it used to open like a Vidradi and Rakta used to come out. It Tvagdosha Krit. It leads to skin diseases. And in our clinical practice, we observed that there are a lot of people who consume this Kusumba Taila and they generally develop these Tvagvikaras. It's not that Kusumba is wrong. When it is to be taken, who is the person taking this? That is important. So it is a Vyadhikara Nidana. It causes the Tvagroga, and hence in this case we found that when you asked him to avoid this, within a period of 15 days, we found that they started healing. So the Hetu, identification of Hetu is a very critical part in the treatment. There is Antaranga Hetu as well as the Bahiranga Hetu. The Bahiranga Hetu is Ahara and Vihara. So the Vihara, we have again the classification of Niyatakalina Vihara and Aniyatakalina Vihara. The Niyatakalina Vihara is Dhanindana and Artava. So the Vihara, the regimen which we need to follow throughout the day is Dinacharya, and which we need to follow throughout in the different Rutus is Rutucharya. So what constitutes the Aniyatakalina Vihara is the Sadvritta. So Dinacharya, Rutucharya, Sadvritta, and avoiding the Mithya, that is the Vegadharana and Vegodhirana, completes the total aspect of health. So what the history we take in from the patients is his Dinacharya. What food he takes throughout the day. What is the combination of the food? What is the oil he uses for seasoning? He takes dadi. How he takes dadi? Whether kshira plus dadi or only dadi. Whether he takes dadi during the night. Whether he does exercise in the morning or evening. Whether he does vyayama after taking food or before food. So these are all the aspects of dinacharya which we inquire into. We get the history and we get the results. Why? Because it is based on the Ayurveda Upadesheshu Videya Paramadhartha. Ayurveda text tells what? Follow what the Ayurveda Upadesha says. Now comes the anumana, that is the tarka. What is the base behind this? You can easily confer. When you ask him to avoid kusumba taila, the symptoms reduced. When you ask him to avoid the dadi and during night, he will be relieved of the kafaja lakshanas. He will be relieved of the ajirna. He will be relieved of the raktapitta lakshanas. So the nidana is very important. See, our sharira, we are what we eat. So our every dhatu, rasarakta, mamsa, meda, the three dhatus, the vata, pitta, kapha, the purisha, mutra, they are all related. They are what? They are the products of anna, ahara, jirna. When ahara becomes jirna, it gets converted into mutra purisha. It gets converted into saptadhatus, right? So the base for this is the dinacharya, rudacharya, and sadvrata, and that is what needs to be strictly followed. So says in the text it is said, acharat ayur labhyate. You get ayu, that is longevity, when you follow the acharas, the principles, the regimen what you need to follow during whole day and the rutu. So that achara pradhana syat. You should become achara pradhana. Follow what is told in the text. Many a times we may not understand the tarka behind it, but it's very important that you should have extreme confidence in the book that you read, the science that you follow. That is Ayurveda. See, what is Ayurveda? Athato Ayushkamyam Adhyayam Vyakhyasyaಮ Ityasmaho Atreyadayo Maharshaya. Atreya Adaya Maharshaya. All the Atreya and other rishis have explained. Why Bahuvachana? Atreya Adaya Maharshaya. Right? They did a research, and it was not a publication of Sushruta, it was not a publication of Dhanvantri, it was not a publication of Charaka. When asked, we say Punarvaso Atreya Nopadishta, then Agnivesh Krite Tantre, Charaka Prati Samskrite, Dhradavalena Purite. Why? See, it was examined again and again, studied again and again by various Vaidyas. And that's why Bahuvachana. Right? It has the Aneka Parikshaka, Bahuvidam Pariksha. It has been put to test by many Vaidyas and they found the effects, and that's why after that the Samhitas were written. So when we say Ayushkami Adhyaya, it refers to all those who are desirous of Ayu. So this is about the some of the basic principles of Ayurveda and why we should read the Samhita. So it's very important that the Nitya Adhyayana is most important, without which we cannot understand the basic principles of Ayurveda. So it's 7:50. If you have any questions, you can ask me, or we'll proceed with some of the slides.
Yeah, namaste. I think there was some connectivity error with Sir's end. Sir will be reconnecting soon. So we are just trying to check on that, please.
Yes, madam, it's connected.
Yeah, sir.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, yes. Now, sir, yes.
Okay. So can this Avartana Samskara be performed for all Tailams? So as I told you, we discussed earlier that what Sarvanga Sundara commentary, that is Arunadatta, suggested us, you read the Samhitas, you go into the principles. So the view that if you potentiate the Tailams, we will get better results, and the Tailas become potentiated, and they develop very Sukshma Guna like the Kshiravalla 101 we use. So regarding this, there is a huge discussion where in the 13th century by the acharyas, by the commentators, the Vaidyas of that time. So one among the famous commentator is Nischalakara, commentator of Chakradatta. So the same Balataila, the Kshira Balataila 101 which you use from Charaka or Vagbhata, from all these references, he has quoted the same references. And what he has told is this Punaravartana Samskara cannot be done. What is the basis for that? So he says, it is वीर्योत्कर्ष एव प्रयोजनमुक्तम् स्नेहपाके अनुक्तेऽपि अनेकदा पाकः कर्तुम् उचित एव विकृति विषम समवेते तो यथा निर्दिष्टम् एव क्रियते. So when it is the question of prakriti samasamaveta, you can use this concept of punaravartana. But the same concept of punaravartana is not applicable for all the tailas, because in Vikriti Vishama Samveta of the dravyas, then what happens? The dravyantar utpatti, that is some other dravya utpatti takes place and you process it again, then the product is lost. Say, when we say if we A and B interact and a C is formed, so we get the effects because of C. So if you boil C again, then what will happen? Then C will get split up into some other product, right? So that means the Punaravartana principle is applicable depending on the dravya that is used, the Prakriti Samasamveta and Vikriti Visham Samveta. So he has clearly discussed at that time that by Vikriti Vishama Samveta combinations it cannot be done. So it's very important that only in Prakriti Samasamveta this is indicated, not in Vikriti Visham Samveta. So we should be very cautious when we go for the Adhika Avartana. So he further says, if the Avartana is to be done is told in some text by some authentic Apta, then you can do that. So in this way, we can understand that the Samhita clears the Mithya Jnana, the wrong notions or the conclusion which we may arrive at. So how Samhitas are useful? They are useful when we follow them, they are useful in our practice. They are also useful when we develop some wrong notions or we come to wrong conclusions, then we want to correct. So what is the basis for that? So it is again the Samhita that guides us. So the basis for all the practice is Nitya Adhyayana. So today, in the recent times, a lot of people are consuming Chavanprash, right? Whether to be taken or not, it's Vaidya you have to decide in which season it is to be taken, when not, that is to avoid it. So what is the indication and contraindication? You should know. Is it that they can directly purchase and take Chavanprash? See, Chavanprash is a part of Rasayana therapy. So can it become an OTC drug? So we Vaidyas and the people should also ponder over this. So many drugs are used in it, and when it is to be used and when not to be used. So it's Vaidya who is going to decide it. The most important principle here is Asya matram prayunjita yoparundyana bhojanam. What's the quantity of Chavanprash? So they are taking with milk, they are taking with bread, everything. So a lot of forms have come of Chavanprash. But are they going to give the Rasayana effect? The first is it should be prepared in the way it's mentioned in the Samhitas. And secondly, it is to be taken in a quantity which should not affect the Agni of that person. That is the most important aspect that has been highlighted. So that we come to know when we do Nitya Adhyayana, we whatever we administer, whether it is a drug, whether it is an Ahara or Vihara, you should have a reference from the text. What is told regarding this? What is the critical point relating to it? That you should concentrate. To do this, what you require, you should understand the basic language of Ayurveda. What is it? The language of Ayurveda is Sanskrit, you know. So without Sanskrit, we cannot understand Ayurveda. So language is the soul of intellect, and reading is the essential process by which that intellect is cultivated beyond the commonplace experiences of everyday life. So, great when I said like this. So what we need to do, the most important part in practice is you first read the Samhita. Samhita Adhyayana, Nitya Adhyayana is very important. So I think we're coming to the end of the session. If you have any questions, you please ask me.
So there was a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Can Kshirapaka Kalpana be used in Taruna Jwara? Sharangadhara quotes the property of Amapachana Karma to Kshirapaka Kalpana.
Yes. Amapachana is mentioned in the Kshirapaka. Kshiramashtagunam dravyat. Kshiranniram chaturgunam. Kshiravashesham tatpitam. Shulam amodbhavam jayet is what is quoted there in the Sharangadhara Samhita. So Shulam amodbhavam Shulam jayet. So amodbhavam Shulam jayet, it doesn't mean that in all ama conditions you can give. That is the first. See, why it is important is the first aspect is where it is mentioned. See, this is mentioned in Sharangadhara Samhita 1. Second, it is mentioned in the Jwara. Whether it is mentioned in Jwara? No. Lashuna Kshirapaka, especially the Kshirapaka is mentioned in the Gulma Chikitsa. That is second aspect we need to consider. So in Kshirapaka is mentioned in Jwara, but where it is in Pakwa Jwara, not in Amajwara. In Pakwa Jwara it is mentioned. That is, when the Jwara becomes Pakwa means it Asaptaratram Taranam Jwaramahur Manishinaha. So after that, if the Jwara persists and when there is no Ama after 11 or 12 days, so such cases when we get, that is the time to give the Ghrita, Purana Ghrita or the Prayoga of the Kshirapaka is indicated in that condition. It's not indicated in the initial condition. That reference you get in the Jwara Chikitsa also. So that is one part. Then Shulam Amodbhavam Jayat is what is mentioned there. So that is Sharangadhara Samhita coming to that. So the Jwara is clear. It is not administered in Jwara. Why? In Jwara everything is contraindicated, right? Jware Langaname Vado. And all forms of Kashaya Kashaya Set Yavasa Varjas Tarune Jware. So the second is the uh, Gulma Chikitsa, where it is mentioned, there in Shula, Amodbhava Shula, it is mentioned. There, Chakrapani clearly says that it is the combination of Lashuna and Kshira that does the Amapachana as well as the Shamana of the Vata, because Vata is involved there. So, in such condition, it is indicated.
So there was another question. In case of fever, patient will be having bitter taste. So patient will be avoiding food. So as doctor, we say eat well, get well soon. Is it a wrong advice? That is a
Ah,
question.
yes, eat well, get well soon is when he gets the appetite, right? When he doesn't have appetite, there is no need to give food, right? So in Jwara especially, the person will not be having appetite because this Agnimandya or the absence of the desire to eat food is a very typical lक्षण of Jwara. It's only in the some Agantu Jwara we find that the person will be having desire to eat or Vata Jwaras. So there they have mentioned some food what is to be given there. So what Brahmana, the Brahmana method is to be adopted, but that doesn't mean that we can give all sort of Guru Dravyas, right? What they have mentioned, they have mentioned certain types of mantha. What they have mentioned, they have mentioned several types of mantha. So what is mantha? The phala is used there. Then the certain phala have also been mentioned in the Jwara. So then what is mentioned along with the phala, the laja is mentioned there. So the various forms of laja are also administered along with it. That is laja churna along with the phalarasas or along with the mudgayusha. Like that, the administration is mentioned as a food in Jwara. In some cases, even guda is mentioned with ahara. That is typical in agantu Jwara and vata Jwaras. Okay. So eat well is when you become all right, free from the Jwara lakshanas, ama lakshanas, you can, then we give lot of food to them. Okay.
So there is another question. Uh, the question is, when my mother feels fever, always she complains more of kshuda. Why does this happen? And in despite of having fever, food intake has been advised by the family. Still, the fever goes off despite of having such food item. So how does this happen?
Huh. See, when the appetite will be more in Jwara, right? See, what is the condition when we say this? See, we are very particular about the ama. So malas tatra, what happens in Jwara? Malas tatra svaisvair dushta pradushanaihi amashayam pravishya amam anugamya pidhaya cha. So ama pravesha will be there. Without ama pravesha, with the dosha, the sanyoga of ama and dosha in amashaya, that must happen if Jwara has to occur. Now, when this is there, when why the appetite is more? See, this can happen in either Vata Jwara, but it will be not atikshuda. But when you are telling that there is the kshuda is more, then definitely it might be pitta jwara. Because in pitta jwara, this kshuda, excess of kshuda is observed. Like even the sweating is not observed in majority of the jwaras, but in pitta jwara, sweating is a lakshana there, right? Svedavaru, we say Svedavarodo Santapaha, but Svedavarodo is not observed there. So it is in Pitta Jvara where you get such lakshanas. That is one. Or there may be a very little ama condition when such a condition is observed. That must be the condition where you're telling, because you're telling that when the food is taken, she gets well also. Then definitely it indicates that the ama is very less, and mostly the associated dosha is vata or a bit of pitta.
So there is another question from Surya Prakash. If someone has more appetite during fever, what can be the cause for that?
So that's what I told. That is the if ama is less, then only this is observed. If ama is more, we cannot observe this, right? So if alpa ama is there, then you can observe that the kshuda will be there. So you can observe even in the lakshanas, in the patients also, that those who are having the history of this vata jwara, right, the agantu jwara, and the certain types of pitta jwara, certain conditions of pitta jwara, this kshuda is observed. And you should also differentiate this from the mithyakshuda. There is also another concept called as mithyakshuda, that is a wrong hunger, right? It is also told in the text that vishavan nihanti, that is in such conditions. Now coming to the practical part, what we need to do, see, we generally what we do is in such conditions we ask them to drink a bit of water, say a half cup to one. When they say that they are having a lot of kshuda, you give them some water, a cup of water. Then what happens? If there is kshuda, right, if there is a real kshuda, then that will also get digested. You will again feel appetite. If it is like a ushma or a teja of the pitta, then when you take water, then it becomes shamana. There will be shamana of that, and again he will continue with the less appetite. So there is a upashaya method of also of differentiating this condition. By giving a upashaya ahara or a paniya, you can also differentiate whether it is a real kshura or a mithya kshura.
So there's another question from Dr. Sairam. In Nidana analysis, what to be asked in Jwara as per modern context?
Now, as per modern context means what? See, the context as per us remains the same. See, aharascha viharascha yahasya doshagunai samaha dhatubir vigunaschapi srotasamsa pradushakaha. So, ahara and vihara are the basic causes. So, whatever may be the modern context, or say the modern type of taking food, or the say what we call today as we are calling the today's kasa shwasa. That is why I discussed the first case. So, it is like infectious, right? So what we do for infection? So we don't do anything for infection. We go for the fact that it is infectious or it is sankramika, but we still go on the fact that there is ama, right? So regarding nidana, it is ahara and vihara that is very important, and we should stress on the dinacharya, rutucharya, and sadvritta. These are the three aspects from where we get the nidana, right? So if you have any, what do you mean by the modern context? If you have any something else, please let me know.
So another question from Neetu Sri. What is treatment for hiccup and if it continues for more than 12 hours associated with breathlessness?
Yes. Then when you are saying there is breathlessness, there is shvasa, then definitely this hikka and shvasa are the conditions that may further lead to that may lead to what? That may lead to the even death. So kasa shvasa, when they are having this lakshana, means you have to treat it properly. Now, what is the base for this? See, generally in our OPDs, what we do is we follow the same principle. Aktam lavanatailena nadi prastara sankare. Hikka shwasaritam snigdam adaus. So first the lavanatail application and nadi sveda, that is one. And in the condition where this cannot be done, then you have to go for the Anulomana Chikitsa. The first treatment for that is that which can do Deepana, Pachana as well, Anulomana. So we generally give first start with the Jirakapaniya or the Yavani, Ajwan. So administration of this generally does the Anulomana and relieves the symptoms. That is one. The second is then doing the Anulomana with the Anulomaka Dravas, which are they like we give the Yavani Guda, Ajamoda Guda. There is one called Ajamodadi Guda also. So this is found to be very effective in relieving the Vayu, in doing the Anulomana of the Vayu. So that is the method we adopt in this condition. So since you are telling there is Shwasa, then Aktam Lavana Taile Nadi Prastara Sankara is very important. The third aspect you need to observe is if after this the person develops certain times desire to vomit or there will be relasa, then Sadhya Vamana needs to be given at that time. Right? So depending on Doshagati, the treatment has to be done.
So another question from Keshav Nath. Why Kashaya is the main kalpana in various diseases at present clinical practices?
So why Kashaya is the main?
Main kalpana in various treatment of diseases.
Kashaya is the main kalpana. That's right. See, not only Kashaya, see, in the North India, if you go, they are not using any Kashayas, right? So it's not that the Kashaya is the only line of treatment, but Kashaya is the most effective, most commonly employed, and most commonly recommended by the Samhitas and our Acharyas to be used, right? So, like Swarasa, Kalka, Fanta, there are various forms. Among them, the Kashaya is how it is supposed to. Swarasa also you can give, but when Swarasa is Guru, compared to that, this is Laghu. And Kashaya is more effective than Kalka, Fanta, or other forms. And that is why Kashaya is indicated in various forms to be taken in various Vyadhis. Like we discussed in Jwara, the Kashaya is contraindicated, but Kashaya is indicated in the form of Paniya, right? So that is one way. Then, what is the merit of Kashaya? See, the Kashaya process involves the interaction between the Dravya and the Drava, that is the Jala. So, what is up for Jala? It is the Yoni. It is the Yoni for all Shadrasas, right? It is Yoni for Shadrasas. So, any drug you take Panchavalkala, you take Tifala, you take Shalasaradigana, everything will do what? Virya Dhana. The Virya of that drug will come into the Drava, that is Jala, and will become more effective. So, that's why Kashaya Kalpana is most commonly used. So, there is another question: is Kashaya tablet capsule effective as the liquid one? Okay. So the Kashaya tablet or the capsule, see, the Kashaya, when converted to Kashaya tablet, means you are converting it into a Ghana, right? Kwatadina punapakat ghanatvam sa rasakriya. So you are converting it into rasakriya form. Now, what happens in rasakriya, right? What happens in rasakriya? See, as I discussed, that's why I discussed in brief about this principle, like in Punaravartana. So what Punaravartana, we got the meaning from our acharyas that Punaravartana cannot be done for every Taila. So the same answer is there. The Ghanatvam sa Rasakriyas. Today we are using all sorts of Rasakriyas. But whether Rasakriya can be done for certain drugs or is it contraindicated for certain drugs, that we need to ponder over. Because so many thousands of Ayurvedic medicines we are using and various Ghanakvatas are also prepared. So whether it is to be prepared or not, whether it is to be effective or not, that needs to be proved. That's a very important part. Because see, in the earlier tradition of the Kerala, what used to happen? Kvata means they used to give the Kvata Dravya, the Kvata Churna they used to give and they prepare the ask the patient to prepare the Kashaya. Then came the prepared Kvatas, then came the we accepted the Kvata Churna tablets. So the basic principle is that whether the Puna Puna Kalpana or that is the Ghana Kvata Kriya is applicable to all the drugs. So without that study, going for the Kashaya tablets and all may prove to it to be it may give different effect or it may prove to be less effective. But if we claim that it's more effective than Kashaya, then we need to prove on those grounds. But practically also we have found that it is very easy to administer, easy to be taken by the patient. Some have got results also, but taking it in the form as told in the text in the Samhita is the most superior form in which it is to be administered. Okay. So Kashaya Kalpana is prohibited or Kashaya Rasa is prohibited in Tarunajvara. Yes. So Yak Kashaya Kashayasya Atsavarjas Tarunejvare. So in the early Tarunajvara, Yaha Kasha, न तु कल्पनमुद्दिश्य कषायः प्रतिषिध्यते य कषाय कषाय स्यात् स वर्जस्तरुणे ज्वरे. Now, what is kashaya kashaya? So kashaya is contraindicated. Kashaya is contraindicated means the various forms of the kashaya kalpana, that is swarasa kalkata, all forms are contraindicated. Now, can madura be administered? Can lavana be administered in jvara? No. So it is clearly told that it leads to increase in ama, swadvamla lavana. Now left are tikta, katu and kashaya. So tikta is indicated, right? In which form again? Not in the kashaya kalpana forms, it is in the paniya form in which it should be administered. So what's the best ahara and vihara for chronic patient of bronchial asthma? Okay. So another question is left. So, okay. So COVID symptoms and what is the principle we need to follow. So the COVID symptoms and the conditions, what we need to follow is the treating in the COVID symptoms. It's very important that's why I have discussed the first regarding jvara. So it begins generally with jvara and kasa. So the line of treatment that we need to adopt is don't go on the fact that, see, by telling COVID or writing COVID or diagnosing it as COVID is not going to provide us any clue for what we need to do in treatment. What we need to do in treatment is we need to treat the jvara and kasa. So what is the principle behind it? That is langhanam swedanam kalo yavagvas tiktakorasaha. Be sure that this is very effective. In many of the cases who have come for the COVID treatment, we have found that the starting with langhana or the svedana or upavasa as the condition is found to be very effective in treating the COVID and other symptoms. That is one. In the post COVID symptoms, then you need to observe what has really happened. See, Veshaja Kshapite Patyam Aharair Brahmanam Kramat. Brahmana is the treatment, but whether the Agni will agree with that, whether the Agni will digest the food you give, the medicine you give, the Rasayana you give. So that's very important. So it is Veshaja Kshapada conditions wherein excessive medicine has been administered. So the first the medicine needs to be stopped in other sort of medicine. Then you need to go like uh, Punaravartana, the like the treatment we do in after Shodhana, Yathanuragnis Trinagomayadhyahi, that principle you need to follow. Begin with the lowest food, Manda, Peya, Yavagu, Vilepi, then proceed to the higher foods. So this is all dependent on the Agni on which you should do the treatment. Okay. And explain Upvasa in context of Hetu Vyadi Vipreet and how to apply in Chikitsa. So Hetu Vyadi Vipreeta. See, it is Hetu Vyadi Vipreeta only, what we discussed in Jvara, right? It is opposite. See, in the case I discussed, so he had taken heavy food in the night, that is in Akala, he had taken paneer as well as the roti. It is Guru Ahara. So, what is Hetu Vipreeta? When Ati Ahara or Guru Ahara is taken, the opposite to it is Upvasa. Then, what is opposite to Jvara? Upvasa is opposite to Jvara. Upvasa is Vyadi Pratyanika, Upvasa is Hetu Pratyanika. That's why the depending on Hetu and Vyadi, we advise them Upvasa. And when there is, he has not taken any Guru Ahara, that is why people say we get appetite when we are having Jvara. Why? The Nidana is not there. That consuming Guru Ahara is not there. In such conditions, we observe that the patient gets more appetite. And that's why after little Amapachana, we need to give them immediately Ahara Dravyas. Right? So that's a good question. So it is what? It is Dvividopakramani Adhyaya. So you have to do both Santarpana and Apatarpana. Right. Ahara is Mahabhaishajya. Yes, Ahara is Mahabhaishajya. And for hypothyroid or diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, what are these? See, these are the names. They are given to different condition. So, Ahara is a Mahabhaishajya and will prove as a Mahabhaishajya in all these conditions. See, the Nidana is very important. Based on that, with the Aushadhi, you can administer that.
Yeah, sir. I think we are almost coming with the end duration of the time. Uh, yeah, so there's, I think, one or two questions at the last that's
Right,
dropping.
right.
Should we?
Okay. Even in Vata Rogas, whether we should give Kashaya or Sneha, yes. See, Vata Roga is again based on what? Two conditions. One, Kevalam Nirupastambam Adau Sneha Rupacharet. When there is no Avarodha, Sneha can be given. But if there is Avarodha, you cannot give Sneha. There you require pachana or the administration of kashaya dravyas, and in certain conditions, in the text only it is mentioned to administer kashaya with sneha. You give some prepared maharasnadi kashaya, that is prepare maharasnadi kashaya, then you add ghrita to it. So it is the principle of brahmana or langana that is based on the avarana or absence of avarana. So in Madhumeha, what is ahara? So Madhumeha, what is ahara? The first is Nidana Parivarjana. And what ahara need to be given? So to tell you, you know the rasas and all. So the ahara is to be given in Madhumeha is very important. So what is the ahara? Whether we can give chapati? Right. Yes, you can give godhuma. What is prepared with godhuma is best. Then whether you can avoid totally rice. People in South India are totally dependent on rice and there is satmya ahara. Now this satmya has become cause for the disease or not. If you make them avoid all the anna, that is the shali, then can it help in controlling the diabetes? No, with other aharas also it again increases. So the ahara that is recommended in the text is godhuma. Then satmya needs to be considered. Yava is mostly indicated in recommended by the text, and even the yava and godhuma siddha rotika, that is very effective ahara. You can administer them the angara tapta aharas, that is which are prepared on angara. They do rukshana, so ruksha aharas can be given. Even the uh, the foxtail millet that is most commonly prescribed now, the millets that are commonly used. So the priyangu is most commonly used, that is known as navane in Kannada. So this priyangu is also indicated and very effective in controlling the madhumeha. So these are the some ahara dravyas, but we need to administer them considering his agni, his satmya, and his condition, right?
Yeah, sir. I think we can move to the conclusion of the session for today. It was a great honor listening to you, sir. Very eye-opening session, wonderful session where we had a lot of context that was being discussed. I'm sure all of the Tatwaprakashini participants have a lot of knowledge to carry back today.